60 books at the middle school is not going to be as long a process, but when you're asking 5 people to go through that book, look at it, read it, review it, look at it in its true context, that's going to take a little bit of time. That's not something that's going to happen before the next meeting. That's not something I envision that we're going to be able to get through all the books before we start school. 5 people are trying to look at that. We're trying to make sure the committee is consistent. Asking that much time is a lot. And so, we're looking at trying to accomplish, a book about every 10 to 15 days. I don't know. We'll see how realistic that is. But that's what we're trying to attempt to do when we go through the review process. So, just so everybody knows, that's where we're at as far as the book review process. And then as far as selection materials and how we select books and how we purchase books and how we do all those different pieces in our library, our district spends anywhere between $4,000 to $6,000 every year on library books to make sure our kids have the most up-to-date material, the best resources, all those different pieces for our students. When we look at materials selected, it's very rare that we buy a single book. In fact, that's really rare. Most times you're buying books based on recommendations. And so some of the recommendations, I'll read these off. Publisher recommendations from Scholastic, Follett, grants, donations, the continuation of set authority in the library, books by authors that are popular for the age group, books recommended by the Missouri Association of School Library Committees, which is the Gateway Award nominees, Show Me Award nominees, the Mark Twain Award nominees, Truman Award nominees, and the Dogwood Award nominees, which are all just local Missouri committees. Then you have your Newbery Awards, your honor books, your Caldecott Award and honor books. And then you also have recommendations from your American Library Association and the Association for the Library Service to Children Award nominees and winners. And so in any one building, we're looking at all those different sets of books that we can purchase. Like I said, it's pretty rare unless one of our librarians, media specialists, is out and actually see a book that we've been asked about, or a teacher is asked about, and we don't buy 5 sets. And so we usually do buy a lot of those, 100 at a time, maybe 50 at a time, or whatever the award nominees are. It might be 20 of the Newbery Award winners, or 15 of the Truman Award winners. So that is how we select our books, and then that procedure goes through our process of purchasing, which also entails the teacher putting the PO in, getting that approved by the principal, having that sent to myself, and then moving on before we actually pay all those bills. So that's how the process goes as far as our library selection, what we do. I don't know if there's a specific book or set that we look for. It's just, like I said, we're looking at every year, trying to keep up to date and going with most of the recommendations from, like I said, some of our vendors, some of our people that already have some of our equipment in their library, like Follett, which we use for all our library services. So.
Now, as I understand it, we have a book review request form, and anyone can request a book to be reviewed. 3 questions are asked on that form?
There are 3. There's more questions than asked on the book review process itself. There's quite a bit more on that. We're asking for, when did you read the book? What excerpts of the book don't you like? What are your specific objections, the educational use of this material? What would you like the library school to do about the work? Those different pieces. What will come out of the review process is really 3 things. And that is that we'll decide to leave the resource, the book, whatever it is, that the first choice is that we can leave it on the shelf. There's no restrictions, and that the committee feels like it's fine. And so they decided to leave it on the shelf. The second is that there could be parental consent on that book, and that the committee says we'd like to see parental consent or some kind of parental order on that book, that if kid tries to check it out, that a phone call would be made home before that book would be checked out. And then the third one would be removed completely from the shelf, and wouldn't become part of the circulation. And once the review committee would have those, those parties that have filled out the request would then have the second process in our policy would be to come to me. Then I would have to look at the book, review it, give my ruling on the book. And then the third part would be if they didn't like my ruling on the book, and then the Board of Education, then that would be the final answer. So that's how that process works.
Dr. Robinson, would you clarify when you said when you purchase like 20 or 100 books, you're not saying that we're purchasing the same book?
No, that would be sets of books. So I mean, we might take the top 100 scholastic books from the year before or the year or whatever it is. That's not going to be the same book. Not saying we don't have multiple copies of some books in the library, but for the most part, your books are going to be, singletons.
Thank you. Dr. Robinson, excuse me. Just a quick question regarding the parental consent.
Yes.
Is this something that we, at the beginning of the school year, are we very clear about that opportunity for parents to have certain books that they don't want them?
Well, we're looking at that process right now. Some of our districts in the South have actually been through this process last fall or last spring. And so we've actually kind of consulted with another district quite a bit larger than ours in the South that has kind of put a process in place. And so I know Mr. Urban and I have shared some conversations on that, and we're looking at what that would look like. I'm not sure we're ready to present that yet because we haven't got all the details on how that works and operates and how that would even look and work and operate in our school. So that is something I can bring back to the board in April when we have a little bit more information, but we are looking at the process and we can do that, yes.
But to clarify, right now there exists in our library an opportunity for a parent to say, I do not want my child reading that book, and we honor that. Is that correct?
Yes. The parents would call our school and say, I don't want a student to read this material. We would honor that request.
Dr. Robinson. So, as a parent, my understanding is that we all have the ability to see what our kids check out as well, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, is there any kind of a rating system that we have in place or just out there that we could look at with regard to what's age appropriate? Because what's appropriate for a freshman might be different, or the freshman might not be ready for what a senior would be ready for. Is there any way for us to tell what that is?
I don't know that we do not have a specific rating system at this point in time. That would be something we'd have to look into to see if there's a specific rating system for books. That I do not know. And like I said, I do know at this point in time we do not have a rating system. I mean, we try to pick age-appropriate material, but I would agree. It's the same thing on a sports field. 14-year-old and 18-year-old are vastly different. And so I would agree with you on that.
So would the committee that's reviewing the books, would they also consider a rating system? Is that something that
a rating system? That's something we could look at. Like I said, we've had to be consistent, and obviously we would be able to do the review process with every book because I think in my letter to parents, I think we have over 33,000 books in the library. So obviously we don't take the review committee and go through every one of those. It'd be better if we were able to find a rating system or rating company that would rate those books pre-hand, which I don't believe. I shouldn't say I don't know if it exists, but I don't know if it does exist. I don't know if there's a rating system like that for that exists out there.
So if we have between 70 and 80 books that are requested at this point to be reviewed, we must have 80 of these forms. Do parents need to fill these out?
For the high school, we have 80, I think, books that are being challenged, maybe a better word, for review. I don't know that we have 80 forms. We have a form with concerns about the books, with excerpts and different things in the books that they would do. So.
I have a follow-up question. So, is there a process in place for when it's an assigned reading within a classroom and a parent has an objection or a concern with one of the books that's in the assigned reading? Do you have a process for that discussion to occur?
We always do. I mean, if there's a concern with the classroom, one, I would suggest talking to the teacher first. Second, if it's not able to be resolved, then obviously go to the principal. And that's always, kind of the first step of the kind of change committee to get an answer. That being said, there are some books that, when we're teaching dual credit or AP classes, that are recommended by colleges, universities, when kids are in especially upper level classes, that we're probably not going to have as much say on that book because it's part of the curriculum from maybe Missouri Western or Central Methodist or Graceland or any number of schools that we have agreements with for dual credit, North Central. So when we have classes like that where we have dual credit, the curriculum pieces are a little bit more set in stone as far as what you're going to need to offer and teach.
Dr. Olson, I have a question. Thank you for outlining what this committee is doing and how they're going to go about it and who makes up this committee. Is that one book, so the committee is all going to look at one book every 10 to 15 days, or is each committee member going to look at one book every 10 to 15 days?
The way we're looking at it right now is about every person will have, we're trying to get the book done in 10 to 15 days. I mean, just so we can kind of still keep the process expedited at the same time, not overwhelm the committee, because they do have jobs, and they have lives and other things as well. So really the committee will have just a couple days, 2 to 3 days for a book to really kind of look through so that book can be passed around. In light of everything, and I know districts are different, I don't recommend buying 8 copies of the book that people want to see off their shelves. And so, and spending more taxpayer money if that's the case. So, for us to have one copy, which is most likely going to be the case, we only have one copy of most of these books. It's going to take, like I said, 2 to 3 days of perusing a book, looking through a book, and doing the best we can to make a good decision on that book.
And then I don't know if you can answer this question yet or not, but just like setting expectations. Once a book is reviewed through that committee, when will we know the outcome? Will the school board be updated? Will the public be updated?
Well, for sure the person that filed the complaint will be notified because there's still a process to that. If they disagree or agree or however you want to look at that with the process. So yes, there is that, and we got to look at some way to kind of keep everybody updated. We do have a list of those books because some of those books I wanted to see how long we've had, how many times they have been checked out. I kind of wanted to see all those before. And so that could be something I would easily share with the board that we could even see about. I'd have to probably check with attorneys. I don't want to see any reason why we couldn't have almost a section on our website that here's the books we went through, here's been the first decision of the committee, and kind of be able to go from there.
Dr. Robinson, sorry to belabor this, but I just need some clarification. So I'm looking at a copy of our form, and on each form you list the title, the author, and your specific concern with the book. And so at the high school there are 80 books generally,
yes,
but we don't have 80 of these specific forms.
We do not have 80 of those forms.
Is there, I'm not understanding, are we keeping with our policy or?
We are keeping with the policy.
Any other questions from the board on the report? Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Okay, administrative reports. Dr. Maverick. And while she's coming up, folks, if you don't know it, we have, without a doubt, the finest administrative staff anywhere in the state of Missouri and anywhere in the Midwest, I'd say. These folks, you cannot imagine the hours, the time, and the care that they put into their jobs. And Dr. Maverick's retiring at the end of the year, and we're going to miss her because she's at the top of that list of caring, loving, supporting persons who works hard and diligent with our kids and providing the best education we can. So I appreciate all of them, but I want to especially recognize you again tonight, Lori, for your work.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I agree with you. We do have some amazing teachers and students and administrators, and I don't think this is going to work very well. So let's just take that out. Okay. Can you hear me? All right. So I have the pleasure of sharing our APR report, some information regarding our APR report. And so
the APR, Annual Performance Report. So, for those that do not know, the APR is actually used to classify and determine the effectiveness of schools in the state of Missouri. And it is criteria that is set by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and it is established through what's called the MSIP-6 document. Recently, until this year, we actually rated school districts based on what was called MSIP-5. There's been a lot of changes between MSIP-5 and MSIP-6. Our last APR report was actually generated back in 2018, and then as you know, they were working on MSIP-6, but in the midst of that, COVID actually hit and things came to a screeching halt. So this current APR report is the first one that we have seen since 2018. And I am going to brag, our district is doing some amazing things. And so I think when you look through that report, if you had time to look through it prior to the meeting, or if you want to take some time and look at the website, it's included in my report. We are just really proud of the accomplishments. In spite of COVID and all the challenges, online learning, we have really done some great things. So some things that have changed since MSIP 5, moving into MSIP 6 that I do want to talk about, there is a score calculator that's called the MPI, and that's the MAP Performance Index. And that is a number that is created by calculating the amount of students that score when taking the state assessments in advanced or scoring proficient or basic or below basic. And DESE takes those score results and assigns a number to those, and then an MPI number is calculated. This year, with MSIP 6, we had the benefit of those scores being placed on a continuum or a sliding scale. So if a student scored basic, which is the lowest, or excuse me, below basic, which is the lowest, this year on MPI calculations, we received anywhere from 1 point to 2.99 points, where before the district only received 1 point. So I do think that is a positive thing. We can now look at our students and say, hey, although you scored, lower than you wanted to, you scored at the top end. So I think that's a good tool for us to be able to use when we have conversations with the teachers and the students. Some other changes include status and growth. Before, with MSIP 5, status and growth were combined. So status is that MPI score, and before with MSIP 5, if we scored high on the status, then we didn't have to consider growth. If we scored high on growth, then we received our points, and status wasn't such a big factor in the calculations. This year, the big change with that is now DESE is separating those two components. And so we receive a score for both status and growth. And those are big points that are awarded through the APR. So that's another change that I kind of want to bring to light. Success-ready students, college career readiness, that has not changed as far as the assessment calculations. That's the same as it was in MSIP 5. And also no changes occurred to success-ready students' advanced credit calculations. So we receive points based on the number of students that we have enrolled in advanced placement courses, how well they score on the AP final exams. We also receive points for students taking Project Lead the Way courses, dual credit courses, and then as well as how well they score on those exams. So overall, like I said, there are some changes that have occurred. But I think, in my opinion, they can only benefit the district and the students. So another big change that occurred, we have now split the APR into two categories. We have performance and we have continuous improvement. Before, we only had performance. So on the performance side, there actually was 126 points possible, and the district earned 101.8 points. And on the continuous improvement side, we came very close to achieving 100% of the points, with the exception of attendance. And as you know, we've continued to address attendance. We did not earn all the points on attendance, so it lowered the overall score. But other than that, I know our assistant principals, our principals, parents, everyone's working together to kind of get those attendance rates up, which would only benefit the students and then also in turn increase those MAP scores, which we're also held accountable for. So I'm not going to go over line item by line item, but if you look at our performance scores, there are two groups that are assessed and points are assigned to all students, and that includes every single student that takes a test. So that in ELA includes our grades 3 through 8 ELA assessments, and then English 1 and English 2 at the high school level or the end of course exams. Overall, the designation was determined to be on track. On track is the next to the highest. The highest level that you can achieve on that area is target, and we are actually right at target. So next year, I look for that to be designated as target. Again, academic achievement status in math, we are achieving on track. There are also student group designations. That student group designation is not worth as many points. It's actually only worth 6 points, but that includes our group of students. So that are the test results from our ELL students, special education students, and then students that qualify for free and reduced lunches. So DESE breaks those down just to determine how those groups are doing in comparison to the whole student body. And you'll see science, again, we are on track. That includes grade 5 and 8. They are the only two grade levels that take the grade level assessment, and then biology. So again, as you can tell, we are on track in both all students and student group. And then the final is those government. And so when we are looking at the status in government, that is our high school EOC, again, we are on track. And if you look at that MPI number, that is the highest one at 399.7. So a lot of growth and a lot of progress is being made there. The bottom section there's two sections of growth, and that includes ELA and math. This is only calculated for grades 4 through 8, ELA and math. The reason DESE only calculates growth based on those grade levels is because science is not given sequentially. So students only take that science assessment grades 5 and 8, and then later in biology. So government is also another assessment. It's only taken the high school year, so there's no way to identify growth in trends. The only way there is to identify growth is through these test scores of our grades 4 through 8. Skimming down, graduation rate 100%, graduation follow-up again 100%. So we do a great job of placing our students. Kudos to our high school staff, our counselors. This year we hired the academic advisor. So although you cannot get higher than 100% as far as follow-up and placement, I think they are doing wonderful things. The data is showing that that's truly been beneficial for our students. Other areas, the continuous improvement side, we worked as a committee, the CSIP plan, Comprehensive School Improvement Plan. We submitted that to DESE back in December, and a review team looked over that and deemed that it was perfect. So we received 30 points out of 30 points possible for our improvement plan. The response to standards, we will not receive a score on that prior to 2024. So, and then we shared back in the fall a climate and culture survey with our families and also students grades 3 through 12 and the staff. And so we also are offered points on the APR for the climate and culture survey. And again, we scored all the points possible. A few more components that are added on the continuous improvement side, those success-ready students. We give our kindergarten students an kindergarten entry assessment. We were able to score 100% on that. Our 8th grade students actually complete what's called an individual career and academic plan. Again, we received 4 points out of 4 points on that. That plan is produced their 8th grade year, kind of lays out after we do interest inventories as to whether the student would like to go into a vocational field, 2-year college, 4-year, employment, and so we create those ICAPs based on that and cater those plans to the student needs. Again, attendance, we received 50% of the points that was available for that. So, and then also included on the APR is the school's audit, annual secretary of the board report, and then submission of our core data information and MOSIS reporting. I also included within my report just some information. Nancy Greeley, our area supervisor, we are part of Region H. She provided us with some data just regarding how we compared statewide. APR district averages across the state was 77%. And so I'm excited. Cameron actually scored 85.2%. And so we ranked 96 out of 553. So again, that goes to show the hard work of everyone. In spite of COVID, in spite of all the learning loss and gaps, we achieved outstanding status. If we were to receive the 2 points for attendance that we missed out on, we actually would have scored at 86.4%, which would have ranked us 79 out of 553. So, so kudos to everyone that was involved with that. She also provided us with the district averages for the Northwest region. That was actually 78%, and again, Cameron scored 85.2%. So we are ranking up there. We're doing great things. So that placed us 12 out of 59 schools. And again, if we would have had our attendance points, we would have ranked 10 out of 59 rather than the 12 out of 59. So, and the final piece of data that Nancy provided us with in the Northwest region, elementary schools on average scored 69% overall. Parkview's score was 87.5%. Parkview's APR includes attendance and that kindergarten assessment information. And CIS scored well as also. So CIS scored 73.5%, which is higher than the average 69%. And their APR criteria is based on test scores and attendance. And the final two, Northwest Middle School building averaged 62%, and middle school was right at 70%. They were 69.7, and their criteria for the APR includes test scores, attendance, and the ICAP. And then the final is our high school. And they kind of share the heaviest burden, I guess, or the most components. Their APR includes test scores, attendance rates, graduation rate, follow-up information on our graduates, and then college career readiness assessment and advanced courses. And so Northwest High School building averages was 73%, and again, CHS, our high school, was at 80%. So again, kudos to everyone. The APR, this is a baseline for the district. Typically, as I mentioned, APRs are used for accreditation and to classify school districts. Because this is the first year, it's considered a baseline. Accreditation and status will not be affected until 2024. That's when it becomes very important. And so over the next couple of years, I look for continued growth. I know I'm leaving the building and the district in good hands, and wonderful teachers and administrators that just are going to continue to raise those scores. So, any questions?
I just want to say thank you to the administrators and to you, Dr. Robinson, for the hours and hours and hours of work that you guys do. I know we spent numerous hours just on that CSIP, and so there was a lot of input from the community on that, and our administrators spent a lot of evenings working on those documents. So, and I think all the hard work really showed off. This is based on 21-22 data, and that is right after COVID. And so that shows that our teachers poured into our students and worked diligently with our students. And I'm pretty proud of that 85.2%. And I am in no doubt, watching the work ethic of our leadership, that those scores will continue to be there and raised. So I just kudos and thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Irv, then with high school, and then activities report.
So a few celebrations at the high school from last month. Our wrestling team competed down at the state tournament the last weekend in February. Girls came away with a 4th place finish. Kind of a fun little fact, we had 3 girls qualify. So in class 1, we finished in 4th place. So huge feat for 3 girls wrestling down there and competing. Our boys finished in 5th. Coach Lim, sorry to bring this up again, but we were out of 4th place by 1 point. So I know that's still a sore subject, but overall our kids competed well on the state level. Gage Jones and Dylan Pratt both placed 4th place. Fun little fact with our 2 state champions, Caleb Hush and Chase Short, closed out their career as state champions. And actually the last time we had dual state champions was back in 2017, and it was Caleb and Chase were their first names. So Caleb Shanks and Chase Foreman. So just kind of an odd situation there, but kudos to those kids. And then Holly Hedgepeth finished as a 2-time state runner-up and 3-time medalist. And Justice Brewer finished as a state champion and our first ever girls state champion. So I want to acknowledge those kids for their hard work. Dr. Robinson alluded to, we hosted the MEC Fine Arts Festival on March 4th. And that was one of the coolest things I've seen. It was awesome to showcase our new facility. I know it's not all the way done, but Mr. Jennings, Mrs. Slagle, Mr. Carter, Mrs. Babolka, the amount of work and prep they put into that was remarkable. And I heard nothing but positive feedback from the different NEC schools that were there. So kudos to those guys. Cabaret Nights was this past weekend. If you didn't get a chance to come out and see that, you missed out. We have some pretty talented kids in our high school. And I know many board members were there. Mr. Lanigan was there. Other administrators. I was blown away. That's the first time I've ever been, and I walked away it was mind blowing how great our kids performed. And I don't know what the name. I call them the tribute songs. That pretty special watching those kids get up there and sing. And I know that cannot be easy. So shout out to those kids. Let's see. Mrs. Babolka wanted me to share. There were 20 pieces of CHS artwork that were awarded at the MEC Fine Arts Festival on that March 4th. 3 of them earning artistic excellence. So kudos to those kiddos. And then Cheyenne Machetta earned 1st place in the sculpture category at the Albrecht Kemper Museum of Art high school exhibition. There were 29 schools that participated, and 109 pieces of artwork were submitted. So that's a huge accomplishment for her. And then last, it was shortly after the last board meeting, our conference released the fall all MEC academic honors, and we had 51 students finish with all academic honors from the fall season, which actually I told Dr. Robinson before the board meeting that out of all of our conference schools, we finished in 2nd by 1 honoree. So Chillicothe got us by 1. They had 52 and we had 51. So overall, I mean, I'm very proud of our kids and our students and our teachers and our staff. Just great things are going. So, any questions?
How are you feeling about the effectiveness of the attendance incentives that you've done?
The attendance incentives that you have initiated. Do you feel
Our attendance, based on just from when we started it this semester, our attendance is improving. So
Good.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Mr. Lanigan and I were talking about it today. From where we are, if you compare month to month, spring to fall, we're ahead of where we were in, like, say, September and October. So, yes, great question. And I did include in my board report, I know it was a question from last month, and I even threw in last year's numbers too. And so actually at this point in March last year, we're, I think, 11% higher. So not where we want to be, but it is a little relieving knowing we're much higher than what we were last year. You're welcome.
Okay, if the high school report's finished, any questions on the high school activities report? You're off the hook.
Hey, sweet, thanks.
Middle school.
All right. So first of all, I want to say thank you for your service this School Board Appreciation Month. As a child of people that were in public service their whole life, my grandparents, my parents, my brother and sister, dedicated their lives to service and being a part of numerous boards, so I know the time that goes into it and the effort. So I do want to say thank you. I appreciate it greatly. One of our common themes in our building has been to get 1% better every day, and we talk about that with our kids a lot, but I do want to recognize some individuals in our building that are working on advanced degrees. Mr. Robinson, Kimber Zubek, Court Ott, all working on their master's degrees in administration. Ms. Janovek's working on her doctorate. Mr. Fisher just submitted his final project for a specialist degree, so there's a lot of relief for him on that, I know. And then I also want to recognize Lindsay Baichulis, who's received a couple of scholarships for some professional development to travel this summer and do some studying. So I think that's pretty awesome, and it just speaks to that getting 1% better every day. The other thing I want to mention, big thing in our building this year is we've really focused on the amount that our kids are reading and getting better. At this point, there were 28% of our students have already reached their second semester AR goal. We've read, in the month of February, our students read 20,933,038 words. And for the year, we've read over 100 million words. So it's a pretty neat statistic that we've been tracking. It's pretty cool. The kids get excited about it. The 7th grade's currently in the lead with 7,740,650 for the month anyway, for February. So I don't know for the year, but the 7th and 6th grade have been pushing each other pretty hard. I also want to give a shout out to Miss McKinley on our PD Day. She took 22 students to Children's Literature Festival that was held in Central Missouri in Warrensburg. They got to meet and visit with authors and find out about writing and writing techniques and brainstorming and just the writing process. And I think that's awesome that 22 kids on a day off their break, they chose to go get some additional learning. So I thought that was awesome. Not something you hear every day. So it's kind of a slow time for us in middle school. It's getting ready to ramp up. Track's getting ready to start. And we'll get into band concerts and choir concerts. So things will start getting busier. But that's all I have this month.
Any questions?
I just noticed the attendance numbers for 8th grade and 6th grade. There's about 11 points different.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any idea why the difference?
Well, there's for the 8th grade and the 6th grade, there's some discipline issues in there that we've dealt with, even though discipline's down 21% from last year at this time. But that's been a factor in some of those numbers. So our numbers have gone up about 2%, which is a small gain, but it's a gain. So we're looking forward to that, and we're still, I think we're working on probably a more comprehensive. What's the word I'm looking for? Comprehensive incentive for our kids for next year. That's something that I didn't work on much before I came this year, so that's something we're going to work on. And we've got a plan, so we're getting excited about putting that in place. But in terms of 8th grade numbers are generally always lower than some, but that's no real reason in particular.
Thank you, Mr. Dickel. Ms. Cox, CIS.
Good evening. I have a few celebrations. Some of those will sound very similar to Mr. Stickles. We also had 16 students from CIS attend the Literature Festival. Those were with Miss Soper, and they had a great day. And even though it was a day off from school, they were here bright and early and spent the whole day experiencing visits with authors and exploring that. They're very much interested in literature, so that was exciting that they were able to do that. Along with that, the students from 3rd quarter that reached their AR goals had ice cream treats the other day. We do that each quarter. We also recognize the classes that had the highest attendance percentages with a pizza party. Kids always love to have a little extra something to have to eat to celebrate, so we appreciated them and showed them with some goodies. Something that's coming up this week on Thursday evening is our Title I Family Night, and it'll be hosted at CIS. In the fall, Parkview hosts that event for Parkview and CIS families. and kids, and in the spring, CIS is the host, so we're having a baseball theme and hope to have a lot of students and their families come attend. The CIS Book Fair is also this week, so that always brings in a lot of families that like to come in and check out the books, and it's going on during the day as well, so kids are previewing and seeing what's there, and then Thursday evening it'll be open in the evening for parents as well. Have any questions on my report?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Ormsby.
Good evening. I wanted to start off with a recognition of the APR report that Dr. Mefford just reviewed with you. I don't know if everyone in the room knows how important that score is to us, but if you ever needed proof for how this district is doing in educating your children, that is your report that you look at. And it's just so exciting to see that. That's what we work so hard for all the time, and those results are amazing. I'd like to commend Dr. Mefford. I don't think that she gets the recognition that she deserves in that role either. The leadership that she's provided over the last several years as assistant superintendent, the high expectations that she's set for us, the encouragement that she's given us, and the goal tracking, just the data that she produces to keep us on our toes and tracking everything, and I think she deserves that, so I really appreciate her for the work that she's done as well. Celebrations at Parkview. We just finished our Readathon fundraiser, and I'd like to acknowledge our students who have earned $11,176 this year in our Readathon, which is amazing. And we're going to use all of that for our end of year Parkview Carnival, so they're pretty excited. They knew that going in, that the more they raise, the more fun we got to have. So our goal at Parkview is work hard, play hard, so we're really gonna have a good time celebrating all their hard work. I also wanted to let you know that our kindergarten projected enrollment for next year is 115 students. We currently have 76 students coming from our own preschool program. We have 26 students in preschool screening, and then another 13 that we're aware of from daycare that just haven't gone through the screening process yet. If you know of a child who will be 5 before August 1st of 2023, please send them our way. You can give us a call and reach out. We do have kindergarten screening scheduled on the evening on April 3rd. And again, that's open to all students, not just those who haven't already been screened in our preschool, but all students, as we'll have our book fair. So that's a good time. Any questions?
Yeah, and do we have one? Hello?
Thank you for your report. Notice in your report that you sent out 67 invitations to students K through 2 for remediation on skills that they're deficient in. I was curious, how are those rotations going, and are you getting the students that you hope to see, the numbers of students you hope to see rotate through there?
That's a good question, Jackie. We've had 3 rotations of tutoring this year at Parkview. We started back in October. This is the beginning of our last rotation. The rotations are 6 weeks, and we are using assessment data that we take in the classroom to determine those areas of deficiency. And then we send the invitations out. I've been relatively pleased with the turnout that we've received, and we haven't had tutoring for the last couple of years just due to obvious reasons. So I'm appreciative of the support from parents. They are supporting their kids, getting that extra help that they need, and we are definitely seeing progress. One of the things Dr. Mefford shared with us was some longitudinal data, which takes a long time to pull, and that's where you track a class of students from year to year. And she shared that with us for 4 years worth of data on our NWEA test. We don't map test at Parkview, but we do give a standards reference test, norm reference, at NWEA, and that compares our students to students all over the nation that take that same assessment at the same exact time of year. And we saw growth not just at Parkview longitudinally, but all the way through CIS. So K through 5, we're seeing excellent growth every single year, even through COVID on that test. So I'm super proud of our teachers and staff at both Parkview and CIS for the job that they're doing, and our students for the effort they put forth.
Thank you for that. And also on your board report, you talked a little bit about the signs of reading movement. And so I appreciate all of that in the report. And also really enjoy the Parkview newsletter. I think that is just a great thing for parents to have. And I can see that the work and time and effort you put into that. So thank you.
Thank you.
You said projected 115 students for kindergarten. How many do we have right now?
This year we have 101 currently, so that's one of our lowest classes. We have 164 in first grade, 134 I believe in second grade. Of course that fluctuates constantly, but
next year we're going to have six kindergarten classes.
next year we're slated for 6 teachers in kindergartens, 6 in first grade, and 7 in second grade. And then we have 6 preschool classrooms as well. We're up to 524 students at Parkview right now.
Since we're talking about how many students we have, I think just since we have such an audience tonight, we have close to 1,700 students in our district. So that's something that some of them might not know, but that's a little bit over actually 17. I think the last numbers I looked at from 22 was 1,714 or something like that. So that was from 22, but just so the audience knows. So thank you.
Strawberry.
Good evening. I also wanted to share with our APR scores that the subgroup that Dr. Mefford talked about, it includes ELL and special education students. They actually have taken out some of the other small groups, so it's just ELL and SPED, that we scored above the state average in special education in all areas, and our growth was, okay, can you hear me now? There you go. Sorry about that. So I was sharing that our scores were above the state average in special education in all areas, and our growth was average or above average in special ed, and that is huge for our kiddos and our teachers. So kudos to our staff for doing that. The other couple of things I wanted to share is that this Thursday, our life skills special education group, grades 6 through 12, will be going to East Buchanan to participate in Job Olympics. So we're participating, having a little competition with some surrounding schools, and working on job skills that the kids would have after they graduate. So that can go anything from stacking shelves, returning money, like if they worked in a restaurant, how they would lay out the silverware and the plates. There's a whole variety of different things that they are working on. And so we're excited to see how our students do. We have 9 students that will participate in that. And then last but not least, our last infant and early childhood screening is set for March 24th. So this will be the last one for the year for all of our families that are interested in having their children participate in parents as teachers or in preschool. So you can see in the board report, I included some fun information about our Dragon Design Company. The shirts, put in some samples of shirts that they made for Pi Day. A lot of the teachers wore them around school, and the kids love them. And then I put a video about the kiddos that we bought the sweeper for. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was really cool. Special message for Dr. Robinson, thanking him for getting him a special sweeper. So that's really all I have.
Mrs. Crawford, I just want to thank you. I know that the scores for our special needs students are above average and among the highest that we've had. And I just want to thank you because it appears obvious that much of that comes from the dedication, obviously, of you and our staff, but some of the special things that you've done, the things from the shirts, the dragon designs to the life skills work to the emotional support dog that you brought in. Really appreciate all the things you do for that population.
Okay, board, you have before you the maintenance and technology reports. Any questions on either of those? If not, then we'll move into communications from citizens, teachers, and students. I would remind those folks, we have 7 individuals who have requested to address the board on a topic, and they have expressed in writing what that topic will be, and I would remind you to adhere to that. If you don't, I will redirect you to stay on topic. And then following that, I do have a timer set. That was a noise I heard a while ago. I apologize. I have a timer set. At the time when it goes off, that would be the end of your time. The board appreciates everyone. So there we go again. So we appreciate everyone being here, and we appreciate your interest. But we also would ask you to respect our speakers as they are presenting what they have to say tonight, and allow them to complete their statements. The board will not be responding to questions. That's our protocol, and we will follow that. I would also say that the board has received a written request of a communication to be read at the meeting. We will not be doing that. We appreciate those written forms of communication as well, but we feel like that if we ask folks to get on the agenda 5 business days in advance to present, the same should be true for written communications. And so if the persons that submitted that individual request for written communication to be read would like to get on the agenda in April, you're more than willing to do that. We're glad to accept that at that time. So the first person that I have to speak is Mr. Heath Gilbert. Mr. Gilbert wants to address the board on the topic of accountability.
I am here tonight to address a serious problem at our school district. I am here tonight to address a serious problem at our school district. Is it not on? Yeah. How about now? Yeah. All right. May I please start over? Yes. I am here tonight to address a serious problem at our school district. I am here to demand accountability. Somehow this body has come to believe that the parents of the school district and the members of the community answer to the district, that we do what you tell us. I am here tonight to dissuade you of that notion and to return the power back to the rightful owners, we the people. You are under the misconception that you can violate the constitutional rights with policy, our constitutional rights with policy. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. You all swore an oath to obey the Constitution. You hold no powers over us. The people sitting here in the crowd behind you are your bosses. You work for us. This is our school district. You are beholden to us. You sent us an email stating that you would not allow us to read from a book that you put in the hands of our children. In the 1964 Supreme Court case of New York Times versus Sullivan, in an opinion written by Justice William Brennan, he said the following about that First Amendment case. I quote, "Against the background of a profound national commitment to the principle that debate on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open, and that it may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials." End quote. It is the absolute right of the public to exercise their freedom of speech. You have no right or power to deny us of that right. You're not even entitled to an opinion on how we exercise that freedom. Allow me to explain. It is my right to stand here and talk to you about whatever I like during my time to address you. I can curse you. I can name every employee of the district and even directly redress my grievance directly against them. You cannot stop me. Your policy stating otherwise violates our freedom of speech. We are under no obligation to follow your policy. We the people are restricted by the law. You are restricted by the policy, not us. Behind me is a group of very concerned citizens who are here to redress serious grievances. They have righteous anger for what has been allowed into our schools under your leadership. You will allow them to exercise their rights. You will listen to them.
Mr. Gillard.
You will honor your oath of office.
I extended your
If
time.
any member of this
Gilbert.
body or the administrators throughout the district will not accept
Mr. Gilbert,
this,
I
here is my
extended your
message to
time,
you.
please.
Let them speak!
Stand up now and offer your resignation.
Mr. Gilbert, I
Tonight,
extended
we
your
the
time.
people begin taking back the power you have abused.
I would add that that request to refrain from reading was rescinded. Next speaker, Travis Eldridge. He has asked to address the board regarding book concerns.
I am Travis Eldridge of Cameron, Missouri. Tonight you will hear from concerned citizens much like me addressing you. I'm blessed to be surrounded by true leaders of our community in attendance. We love our small town that we call home. This group has been successful in unveiling these issues of immorality that are written in the books provided in the public school library. I wholeheartedly believe that we can defeat this darkness together. That is being brought to light. This is the first step in protecting our children's innocence. You have failed respectfully to communicate school policies with each children. You are ignoring his sunshine law request and violating his parental rights. We are now locked armed and finding common sense and common ground solutions starting from the bottom up through a chain of command. We uncovered a massive amount of sexuality, explicit, and verbally graphic material placed in the library since 2013 solely by Mrs. O'Boyle and signed off by Superintendent Robinson. All of this was made possible because you failed to communicate with he and citizens of Cameron. You failed to hear us. You failed to uphold your oath and your duties as elected members. You failed to follow Missouri directives of educational policies properly. You could have prevented us having to be here now had you not placed this evil material in the library in the hands of our minors. This requires a major change in the policies themselves as well. You've had the opportunity for a whole month to be transparent. Having been informed by us through our investigation in which purposely neglected to resolve. Our only administrator who has stepped up in the best interest of the heart of our school district and showing the school board how to communicate with the community has been Vice Principal Lanigan. Thank you, sir. That shows good leadership. Thank you. Due to the lack of truth and transparency in the introduction of these books and the board's inaction, we have identified who's accountable. The school board is now in the crosshairs of Cameron. Several state representatives and agencies. We must be held responsible and accountable. Parents must be involved in the process as well. We must all do better in fighting the battle against good and evil. Mrs. O'Boyle has focused suggestive porn smut as reading material for the week, as well as through her past 10 years at the Cameron High School. This book, The Female of the Species, highly recommended by her, has 183 words of profanity. I have a distinct message that must be heard loud and clear. By and large, we do not want this in our school, and especially available to our children and students. that require only reading, writing, and arithmetic, and a foundation of education. These morals and values are not in keeping of our own in Cameron and surrounding areas. For too long, many parents failed in the duty to ensure their children were being provided with a proper education. We trusted the system, we trusted you, in positions of important leadership to the right of our children. Our trust has been violated.
Thank you for your
We
presentation.
will no longer remain silent. Our voices will be heard loud and clear from this moment on.
Then Cooper has requested time to talk to the board about military school education. 3 minutes.
I am Reverend Vincent Leo Anthony Cooper III, Boy Scout Constitution. I am so sorry. Uncle Albert, there we go. Now we start. I am Reverend Vincent Leo Anthony Cooper III, Boy Scout Constitutionalist, disabled United States Navy veteran. We do not want to ban books. We want to protect our children. Girard College put forth good educated young men offering skilled trades and knowledge for leadership to act responsibly, be transparent, uphold accountability by doing the right thing. As men, we conduct ourselves with honor, integrity, and strength through God. Girard College Incorporated, with corporal punishment, the required character of a regimented, structured life. We learn to embrace discipline, principles, philosophies, and breathe the moral code of conduct. Respecting the chain of command. What has happened? Due to poor parenting with fractured foundations of family, the social decay of embracing immorality, coupled with incompetency of the CHS administration to uphold policy, we gather to identify the problems, find the solutions, and hold those people accountable. You cannot raise your children the way your parents raised you. Parents raised you in a different world that no longer exists. Technology, ideal, woefully awoke. You've got educational indoctrinations. They have raised the education to rubble. Children have learned conformity is doing what everyone else is doing, regardless of what is right. This is what you have achieved. No patriotism, no prayer, and no respect for self or others. Answer, morality is doing what is right regardless of what everyone else is doing. Leaders are visionaries with a very poorly developed sense of fear. No concept of the odds against them. Robert Jarvik. Mr. Gilbert, sir, you are a hero. I pray that criminal charges include participation awards for those who have and are deserving of them. Superintendent Matt Robinson, you are the CEO, the commanding officer of this vessel. You, Dan Kircher, are the president of the school board, and you are the XO of this vessel. Under this repulsive, deceptive leadership of promoting, endorsing, and providing these books, I demand you both immediately resign. It is optically beneficial for you to step down, have a minute part of dignity, knowing you purposefully and intentionally, by your signature of acceptance on the dated public record, failed to protect our children. I am standing on this hill with parental patriots who have unveiled the veil of evil, this vile evil. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Your temple, the body you are born in. We must search for, eradicate pornography, the XXX graphic content. By the way, you're welcome to serve us as elected officials. And school board members, step up to get schooled. The parental patriots have awakened.
If it's not too much, I would respectfully request decorum. Thank you. Our next speaker is Paula Allen. She's requested to speak about inappropriate books in our school library.
Good evening. My name is Paula Allen. I am a very concerned mom, member of the Cameron community, taxpayer, and a United States citizen. I am not here tonight to talk with you about banning books, but rather to request the review of the books in all public school libraries, in all schools in the Cameron District, and also a review of all policy impacting the selection and availability of books in the public school libraries, as well as each classroom library. Perhaps when we are considering the policy for the books in the schools, one could be adopted that is similar to the computer usage policy to gain consistency and compliance for and from the students. As a former case manager at the Child Advocacy Center in Springfield, Missouri, I have seen and worked with children who have suffered trauma as a result of abuse, neglect, and witnessed to a crime. Last week, I reached out to Voices of Courage, which is the Child Advocacy Center in St. Joseph that serves children in Clinton and DeKalb counties. They advised me that 1 in 10 kids, 1 in 10, will be sexually abused by their 18th birthday. With approximately 4,800 kids in Clinton County alone, they saw 44 of those kids. But statistics tell us that approximately 480 will be sexually abused. So that means that 436 kids in Clinton County alone, we know our district is in more than one county, have not disclosed that they are being or have been abused. They have not yet had the opportunity to receive any therapeutic interventions or healing. When these silent kids have sexually explicit material and or content that is required or available, it serves as a continual reminder of the trauma that they have or are enduring. So yes, I want a healthy learning environment for all kids, and tonight I'm speaking up for those who are silent, and I want them to know I hear you and am advocating for you. I want to thank you for this opportunity to peaceably work together. From the email responses I received referencing the books as being inappropriate, which was not my wording, but that of the school boards, I am glad to see we are in agreement that these books are in fact inappropriate. Additionally, the board initially had concerns regarding any of this content being read directly from the books due to the possibility that underage children may hear it. That too reflects we have gained agreement to work to keep sexually explicit content out of the hands of minors. With that type of unity, we will be able to work as a team for the healthiest possible choices and environment for our kids. Thank you for your time and consideration this evening. Respectfully, Paula Allen. There is going to be a book reading with the next lady, so if you have minors in here or you are watching online, you might turn it off, mute it, send them to another room.
Thank you, Paula.
The next individual, Ms. Colleen Hardy, has requested to speak to the board about inappropriate books in our school library.
I'm Colleen Hardy, pastor's wife of Lonnie Hardy of Passion Church. I'm not here to talk about banning books. I want to see change in the policy that allows these books in our school library. This book, Lucky, is in the Cameron High School, and I'm given a 10-second warning before I begin. He started humping me again wildly. The base of my spine was crushed into the ground. Glass cut me on my back and behind. He kneeled back. Raise your legs, he said. Spread them. I did. My legs were like plastic Barbie dolls, inflexible, but he wasn't satisfied. He put a hand on each calf and pressed them out further than I could hold. Keep them there, he said. He tried again. He worked his fist. He grabbed my breast, he twisted the nipples with his fingers, lapped at them with his tongue. He began to knead his fist against the opening of my vagina, inserted his fingers into it, 3, 4 at a time. Something tore. I began to bleed there. I was wet now, and it made him excited. He was intrigued as he worked his whole fist up into my vagina and pumped it. He kicked me. I curled into a ball. I want a blowjob. He held his dick in his hand. I had never done it before. I said, I'm a virgin. Put it in your mouth. I kneeled before him. Can I put my bra back on? I wanted my clothes. I saw his thighs before me, the way they belled out from the knee, the thick muscles and black small hairs and his flaccid dick. He grabbed my head. Put it in your mouth and suck, he said. Like a straw, I said. Yeah, like a straw. I took my hand. It was small, hot, clammy. It throbbed involuntarily at my touch. He shoved my head forward, and I put it in. It touched my tongue, and it tasted like dirty rubber or burnt hair. I sucked in hard. Not like that, he said, and brought my head away. Don't you know how to suck a dick? No, I told you. I said, I've never done this before. Bitch, he said. His penis still limp. He held it with 2 fingers and peed on me. Just a little bit. The smell of him, the fruity, heady, nauseating smell clung to my skin. All Boys Aren't Blue was put into the high school in 2021. By policy, it took 4 people to sign off on this book. As we kissed, he began unzipping my pants. He reached his hand down and pulled out my dick. He quickly went giving me head, and then he came up and asked me if I wanted to try on him. I said, sure. I began, and he said, watch your teeth. He didn't know I was a virgin, and I did my best to act dominant like my favorite porn star. His body felt great in my mouth. I came up after a while and kissed him again. We both got up, went into his bedroom where we got completely naked. He took off his clothes and immediately lay on his stomach. I then took off my shirt and then my boxer briefs. I got behind him. For the first few minutes, we dry humped and grinded. I was behind him with my stomach on his back as we kissed. After a few minutes of fun and games, he got up and went to his nightstand where he pulled out a condom and some lube, and he lay down on his stomach. I knew I had what I had to do, even if I'd never done it before. I had 1 point reference, though, and that was 7+ years of watching pornography. Although the porn was heterosexual, it was enough of a reference point for me to get the job done. I could continue. This is the crap that is in our school out of this book.
I would again request decorum. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Lonnie Hardy, Inappropriate Books in Our School Library.
My approach will be a little different. I thank you for all that you do. Ours is not a political or religious argument, but an appeal to common decency. I am a songwriter and a public speaker, and in my vocation, I use words to paint pictures. Wrote a song recently called Daddy's Girl. She's 2 foot tall with blonde hair and green eyes. I just painted a picture in your mind. Words can create a portrait on the canvas of your imagination. Those same words and pictures can motivate an individual to action. Once an image is captured in the consciousness, it remains in the memory bank, and with the right stimulation, it can return as often as it's called upon. I recently was called upon as in my capacity as a pastor to a situation that needs great emotional and spiritual healing. When a mother with 2 children who were both directly and indirectly affected by the materials that we are calling into question tonight. Both of this mother's children have been affected by a forcible act of molestation. One of her children has been taken into custody in the legal system. She now only gets to communicate with that child through glass on a phone receiver. The other one is trying to just ignore and pretend that they weren't violated at all. This mother's heart is torn between the love of 2 children who need her desperately. How do you tell her to love her children equally without guilty feelings? Help me tonight. What do I tell this mother when she runs to the altar at my church and falls into a heap of emotion, sobbing uncontrollably? What counsel do I give her that will comfort her in the hour of such great grief? What hope can I give her knowing that she has a good kid in the hands of a legal system that might very well try them as an adult and place a minor in a prison with adult inmates? She fears for that child's safety. She fears for the emotional and mental state of both of her children. And what do I tell her? Please, in the name of common decency, remove the inappropriate books from our school. And I will end with a letter from this mother herself. As a mother of 2 children whom have been sexually assaulted, I never thought my child could check out explicit content from their school that even me, myself, am uncomfortable reading. I've always put my trust in their teachers in school. I've always looked at school as a safe place until this year. My children will no longer attend public school due to the disregard to our values as Christians. I never dreamed that we could live in a world where my child would be mocked and embarrassed to be a Christian and read her Bible, but yet allowed to read about bestiality, same-gender relations, and rape. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next individual that's requested to address the board is Dan Landy, Inappropriate Books in Our School Library.
I'm Dan Landy. Thanks for having me here tonight. This is a very serious matter, so I'm not going to joke around. I enjoy jokes, but this isn't a time and a place. We've got 2 issues here, a morality issue and a legal issue to deal with tonight, and in the days and weeks and probably months ahead. First, it's a moral issue, and the fact that obvious pornography is on our shelves in classrooms, libraries, on e-books. I mean, it's who knows where, which we don't know. We intend to get to the bottom of it. And then there's a legal issue, okay? The state statute, 573.044, correction, 040-573-040. State statute talks about, it makes it illegal to provide pornographic material to minors. A minor is defined in this context, anyone under 18, which is about everybody in the school district. Folks, why does it take a group of concerned citizens to bring this to your attention? I would really have, it's very disappointing, as you know, just to know that all the staff, I mean, dozens and dozens, and maybe even 100 staff members in your district, and no one has noticed these books before. No one's been outraged about their findings. You know, it takes us to just do a very simple computer search to find all this filth. It's disgusting, folks. Come on. Mr. Kircher, you and I have been friends for a long time, and we still are. But we need you as a pastor, as a leader, to step up and do your job, sir. Now is the time. We need all of you. You are school board, the school board, right? I mean, you are elected, and I understand what the other speakers were talking about. I mean, we do have a sense of ownership. We do feel like you are supposed to represent us. So many times, though, we feel like you don't. For some reason, you're not listening to our concerns, and we really hope that changes tonight. So I've got some suggestions. Right? I'm not all about complaints. I offer some suggestions. First of all, we need to conduct a full investigation into how these books got here. Okay, I personally had a conversation with Ms. Tanya O'Boyle, the high school librarian, one day, and I just asked her, "Do you have any inappropriate material in your library?" She assured me that she did not, and that she's not that kind of person, that she wouldn't allow that kind of material in her library. Well, after the phone conversation, that's when I got on the line, and I found that not to be the case. I found a lot of filth in your school library. So there's a breakdown in the system somewhere. I don't know who, but you've already identified the process: librarian, teacher, school principal, right, and then the superintendent's involved, and I would assume the board's involved somehow too. So look, it's your job, and it's time to either do your job or step down. Thank you.
Thank you. That's done. That's all of the communications that we have requested previously to be addressed to the board. Board members, any comments? Not, then we'll start.
I would just like to say thank you to you all for coming and expressing your opinions to us. It is important that we hear from you. I would also encourage you to talk to us outside of social media and other avenues. We don't know unless you contact us. We have school emails. I invite you to email us. We are here to listen. We do appreciate the input, and I hope that we will all have level heads and allow the review process to take place. The people on the committee are they're going to diligently look at the books, and I just hope that we will be patient and allow that review to happen, because I think we're all in complete agreement that we want to protect our children. There are certain things that are appropriate for certain ages. There are certain families that there are certain topics that some families don't want. There are religious beliefs, there are political beliefs. We all have different opinions, and parents need transparency.
Yeah, that's not appropriate for any kid.
Parents need transparency, and that's what our processes are trying to do. So I do appreciate you coming and sharing your opinions.
This is not political. This is illegal. This is illegal.
Okay, as we continue our agenda, if you want to leave, you can get up and leave, but we are continuing our agenda. Items for consideration. Any input from citizens, teachers, or students on items for consideration? If not, then we will move along. First item on that part of our agenda is resignations and retirements to be approved. We'll take just a moment. We'll take just a moment and allow our guests to depart.
Very good, sir. Thank you, sir. Really good. Thank you.
Against their policy. Against their policy. So this is something the kids need to know. Well, that's why they're in the life.
Well, that's what they think. Somebody thinks so. I know, right? You're trying to get to the bottom of it. I know. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, the next item is resignations and retirements to approve. Have the list in front of you. Is there a motion to approve those? Moved by Kathy, seconded by Stacy. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye. No, take it back, raise your hand. And then, opposed, raise your hand, motion carries. Next item, personnel to hire. You have a list of individuals recommended for hire. 23-24, moved by Doug, seconded by Ann. Discussion?
We still have openings from the store. No, we still have openings in quite a few positions. Chemistry, we're still waiting to see if we have a certified chemistry teacher. We would love to be able to go back to teaching as a certified teacher instead of having to do it online. But at this point, we have not had the applicants for that position yet. So.
Okay. Any other questions on personnel hire? All in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Those that abstain? Everybody again, the motion carries. Substitutes to hire, recommended list there for you. Motion to approve the substitutes to hire by Pam, seconded by Andy. Discussion. Those in favor of the motion to approve the subs, raise your hand. Those opposed? Those that abstain? Motion carries unanimously. Mowing contract. Dr. Robinson, talk to us about that.
We have a bid in there for a mowing contract. Last year we used Stephen Dotson's services for the landscaping for our mowing. Thought it went pretty well last year. He's given us the option for up to 3 years, but the pricing for up to 3 years. But I would recommend we go ahead and do that. It's been a very hard position to find in the past. We're finding somebody that only wants to work 8 to 9 months and do mowing, and it's a lot. And so, like I said, last year the contract was out. I thought the contract worked out pretty well, so I'd recommend we continue with the services we had.
Moved by Pam to accept, seconded by Stacy. Discussion. All in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, those abstained, motion carries. Salary schedule. Salary schedule recommendation for 23-24. Dr. Robinson.
Yes, and this specifically is more on the certified side. We'll be doing the non-certified salaries in April when we do all the contracts, or letters of intent, I should say. So I've got administrative salaries, certified salaries, counselors, speech pathologists salaries, and then nurses salaries. And what we're looking at is a 3% increase to the base of all those, which actually ends up being more than that for most people because you have longevity or year experience, so then you're actually closer to, just depending on where you're at, especially on the teacher scale, from the 4 early teacher to somebody that maybe has 10, 12 years of master's, you're going to get anywhere between $1,600 and almost $2,000. So I recommend that we do 3%. I think that takes our base to almost $41,500, which would be happy to report is very competitive with our other, but definitely in our conference, but also you have to go down to the city or go to the city or Liberty where you find a higher base salary. So I think that's something we've been proud of, and I recommend that we go ahead and take the recommendation.
Well, let's take the one at a time. Administrative salary schedule. Motion by Doug to approve the administrative salary schedule, seconded by Pam. Discussion. All in favor of approval of the administrative salary schedule, raise your right hand. Those that oppose, those that abstain, motion carries unanimously. Now the certified salary schedule. Moved by Ann, seconded by Stacy. Andy. Discussion. All in favor of approving the certified salary schedules, raise your right hand. Those that oppose, those that abstain. Motion carries 6 in favor, 1 abstention. The counselor and speech pathologist salary schedule. Motion by Jackie to approve, seconded by Stacy. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Those opposed, those that abstain. Motion carries. And now the nurse salary schedule. Jackie, seconded by Andy. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Those that are opposed, and those that abstain, motion carries unanimously. All right. That takes care of the salary schedules. Dr. Robinson, insurance.
Insurance. We went out to bid. I've been working with insurance companies since probably early January. Our current company is Mike Keith Insurance. We've worked with Gina Cunningham as our broker on that. They've been with our district for almost 5 years. In that time, we've mainly been, we've had a couple other people, I'm sorry, and then we've also had United Healthcare, and we've also had all of our ancillaries, such as we went through dental, vision, all those different pieces with them as well. So Mike Keith Insurance is one of the companies we had a bid from, which they have multiple bids on from different companies. The other one is a company named MEUHP. That stands for Missouri Educators Unified Health Planning. King Cook is the kind of president of that organization, but that's actually run by school districts and superintendents. Currently, they're the largest self-funded district in Missouri, so there's almost 100 districts, which would be extremely beneficial for us because all of a sudden we would be a part of the group instead of being rated on our own. So there's some strength in numbers there. And like I said, they almost have 100 districts and may have 100 districts by the end of this year. MEUHP is provides a proposal through Cigna. I look at that as just same as United, Aetna, Blue Cross. They're still a major player in the market. The second sheet of that kind of goes through and talks about where our employees rate as far as employees and how many numbers we have. So we do have quite a few employees on the $6,000 high deductible plan. We have quite a few on $4,000, then we have the $4,000 PPO, and then we have the $2,000 PPO. And then down below, we kind of talk about what that costs our district. Currently, our district spends $590 a month per employee. Last year was the first year that we were not able to put money into a high deductible health plan. Usually we pay the difference. So if a high deductible plan was $560 and we were paying $590, then we put $30 if they had that plan into their health savings account. It was almost acted like a bonus for them. Last year was the first year, or this year I should say, is the first year we were able to do that. So I think our 6,000 high deductible plan, I think employees have to pay $3, which is still very affordable, but it's still that, there was still some cost, and then obviously our other ones were rated higher as well. Now the United Healthcare plan that we have for next year raises that quite a bit, and so that plan was $593. That new plan now goes to $664.83. And then there was almost a $200 increase with some of the PPO. So we got a pretty large increase. I believe it's still 12% if we were to stay with United again. And so that's one option, though, that we do have. The other one is a proposal from another group of school districts, mainly out of Southwest Missouri, called OSBA, Ozark School Boards Association, Anyways, their high deductible plan also was similar to the one we had from United, and so it's $661 for a high deductible plan, which is where most of our people are. With us continuing to pay $590, that means that person would have to pay $70 out of pocket, and we would not put anything to that. And so that's an option, obviously, that we have. One of the things that they rate higher with OSBA until there's a 5-year kind of fall into their formula, which in 5 years we'll probably be at the same place. Yes, we might look at some decreases for the next couple of years, but that's a maybe, that's not a guarantee. And then we have some of the proposals for the ancillary services in there as well. On page 5, we have the MEUHU proposal from Cigna. They offer 9 plans, which is quite a bit more than we normally offer, with the highest being a $7,000 high deductible health plan. With us paying $590 and their employee rate $489, we would actually go put $101 into each person's account that would be on that high deductible health plan. So effectively, they could be saving $12,000 a year if they were a healthy individual. Some of their plans are just a little bit. They're quite a bit better. They actually have a $1,000 PPO, a $2,000 PPO. And those are better than ours, some of our $2,000 and $4,000 PPO plans currently on. So overall, I am asking that we will change insurances. I'll actually be changing as our broker as well. Like I said, we would be moving to MEUHP, which is a Cigna plan, which I have no concerns about. I feel like that's up there, like I said, with United, Blue Cross. They have all the major carriers, or they are major carriers. And like I said, my recommendation would be that we go with Cigna with MEUHP. That includes the ancillary coverages either, same as, and almost the exact same benefits on dental. The only vision difference that we've been able to find is frames would only be eligible for 24 months instead of every 12. But short of that, the benefits are almost identical on the ancillary as well. So.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Pre-existing conditions carry over fine for other.
Yes, they do. There's usually a run-out period, and pre-existing are required by law to be picked up by those insurance companies.
What about local providers? Does that change any with the new insurance?
No, our local hospital actually takes Cigna, so we're not losing the option to go local, and so and they're accepted by local hospitals like Mosaic. If you went to North Kansas City, KU Med, Liberty, any of those are going to have Cigna coverage.
And I can't vote on this, but it's a little self-serving. What's the dental insurance that goes with it?
I believe it's Delta Dental.
Is it Delta?
No, sorry, what is it? FTJ, sorry.
Which stands for?
Well, it's Fortis T. Jones Network. Where's that at?
I guess my next question is going to be, how many providers in this community accept that insurance?
I don't know if we've got all of that information on it.
Okay, well, I'd like to know that. I don't have to have it. I can't vote on it anyway.
No, I know.
But when you look at insurances, and again, it's my last hurrah tonight, but please look at your local providers. There have been times in the past that local providers maybe weren't looked at, and that hurts when you lose a population because of insurance. It happens every day. So anyway, that's all I got.
Is there any way for us to get information on the medical formulary, the comparison? Because there are some, sometimes the real pain point, if your providers are the same, it's when you move from one coverage of all these drugs to a different, and then the cost savings is because your drugs aren't covered anymore.
Right.
So do we have any idea of how that compares?
It compares comparably, yes. Yeah, it does. So.
Do we know about the rate increase history, like over the past years? Like, what is their
rate history? This last year, they gave themselves a 2% increase, but they really couldn't take it to the 0% increase this year. So they had a very good year. The way MEUHP is set up is you're in 9 tiers. So our district would be tiered at a stage 4. So the way that would work is if we have a good year, then our rates could actually move a tier down. So we could move down to tier 3 if we're able to keep a loss ratio, most likely at 80% or below, which is difficult, but that's usually the industry standard. So if we were to do that, let's say there was a 6% increase just overall in insurance, and you moved one rate increase down, you would be at a rate of 1%. Because you drop 5% and you got 6%, so you only get 1%. Now the flip side of that is you have a bad year and you have 120 or 130% loss ratio, and you have to go to the next tier, which you can only move one tier at a time in the program. You would be a 5% increase plus a 6, so you would actually go up to 11, which most likely every year we're industry standard again. Unfortunately, is about a 1% increase per month. Is what we found. So if you look at our United bill this year or United Ed, it's a 12% increase. So, and unfortunately, the way we usually have to talk that down and get closer to a single digit, maybe a 6 or an 8 or something like that, is usually giving up benefits or raising your PPO plans or putting higher, executive health plans or whatever it might be, which really is not a benefit to our employees at all. So. This allows us, like I said, the district would save a little bit because we would actually reduce what we pay per employee from $590 to $568. But that also allows us to do what we just did in past life. So.
And this was the self-funded one?
Well, this is part of the group package. So we would be a part of 100 other school districts.
To piggyback off of what Dr. Wyckoff asked,
right.
We
affected by this insurance?
Yeah, that's exactly the same.
It is, okay.
Anything else? Moved by Dr. Wyckoff to approve the recommendation for insurance. Seconded by Stacy. Discussion. All in favor of the motion to approve the recommendation for insurance, signify by raising the right hand. Those that oppose, those that abstain. Motion is 5 in favor and 2 abstain. Item for our consideration is certified personnel.
Yes, what you have there is a list of our certified personnel. Obviously, tenured teachers do not show up on that list because tenured teachers are already contracted. There's 3 provisions that always come out of the contract. So what you're looking at is effectively the non-tenured list. Some of those individuals, especially if you have a designation of P5 beside them, actually do become tenured teachers on the first day of school next year. So we kind of have a code system there, P1, P2, that tells you the years, and you can kind of see those. But you can see the recommendations that are made. These are from our principals and through summaries and evaluation process.
Any questions? Motion to approve the recommended certificated teachers to hire. Moved by Angie, seconded by Pam. Discussion. All in favor of the motion to approve those certified personnel, raise your right hand. Those that oppose, those that abstain. Motion carries 6 in favor, 1 abstention. And now our School Board Association recommendations for policy updates. Policy 2023A.
Yeah, we have a couple different policies in there. I believe there's 4 or 5 policy forms in there, and we have some policies down below as well. We talked about those a little bit last month, and then we also I sent those out to the board just so you guys had time to review those again. I think it was about a week ago, just to make sure we were on that. I know Mrs. Lockridge had a question on one of those. We did get an answer back, and we do have to make a decision on how we want that actually to be worked. So
The MOCAP may become a moot point because of legislation, but it needs to be.
I don't think it was in the form, I think that was in the policy. Right? You want to get a question on what the forms? Yes, go ahead.
So the public participation, there's a form for public participation at board meetings, and it follows the policy with regard to questions, to put your description on the agenda. It requires you to choose one. Either I met with the superintendent or designee to discuss this agenda prior to making the request, or I did not meet with them within 20 business days, and I asked the question, what if neither of those is true? And so I think we need to clarify the form, just to say, one of these needs to be true, or make a third option that I did neither of you of, just so that it's clear what you're saying.
Okay, you have before you then the Missouri School Board Association policy.
Sorry,
discussion.
I do have a question, a clarification on BDDH-1, public participation. It does say here that agenda items, if section of policy states that residents must submit a request to add an agenda item at least 5 days prior to the meeting. Some clarification, is it 5
business days.
We should definitely include that, if that's what we're doing. That's on paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth paragraph down on BDDH-1. It just says 5 days.
We currently have 5 business days, so we'll make sure that we, Kelly, get that in minutes, that would be revised, please. Any other input? Questions, Pam?
Do we want to go ahead with Andy's recommendation and go ahead and decide on something to update that form tonight? Or so, Andy, do you have a suggestion on how to update that form? So that we
Add a third option, number 1, 2, or 3, is that either 1 or 2?
So the suggestion is on the policy again was which number? BDDHAF1, adding a third option,
Yep.
neither.
Is the implication that if you do not do one of those two, that you would not be eligible to speak to the board?
Right, I think the requirement is that you have to have one of those be true.
So could we choose one of these must be completed before, could we just clarify that? One of these must be completed before.
So adding the third option.
I think we should just clarify that, but we'll do that in a separate motion.
Okay. Any other discussion on the policy recommendations of the School Board Association?
When is it that we adopted the Ed Council policies?
Well, that right now is kind of a discussion on the council policies because the contract language is not favorable to our district.
I see, okay.
Discussion? Motion to approve. Moved by Andy to approve the recommended policy with the recommended change to BDDH1.
Should we make the motion to change that one first and then approve all of them?
I just included it in the motion.
Okay.
To approve with the recommended change to add the word business.
And then what about, are we going to, we'll have a different motion on the forms. Okay, perfect. Thank you, sorry.
Second by Ann to approve the policies, and then we'll update the form. Okay? Discussion? All in favor of the motion with the recommended change, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Now, the form update on form BDDHAF1 would be what Andy recommended was a add parentheses must be completed. Either requested item is identical or substantially similar. One or two. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, but I don't. Motion to approve that recommended form change. Moved by Ann, second Doug. Discussion. Those in favor, raise. Those opposed? I think that concludes the policy policies and updates. And the last item on our agenda would be board member comments.
I have to have comments. It's my last time to talk. So, the last time this auditorium was full like this, and Mr. Lowenstein outside in the galley can remember, it was 18 years ago. And I was out there and I was passionate about an issue. And I have learned over the last 17 years that the best thing we can do as a board is to listen. We have to have open ears. It doesn't always mean we're going to agree with what happens. I can honestly say in the last 17 years, every person that I've served with on this board has put our kids first. We've never done anything to hurt the kids. It's been all about them. Not one administrator has done that, not one superintendent, not one teacher, not one staff member. I've appreciated the last 17 years. I wish this auditorium was full all the time and we didn't leave because our issue was over. I think there's a lot of valuable information that happens in these meetings, and the idea of transparency disappears when we don't have a crowd here to listen. I think it's the public's responsibility also to be at a meeting, to watch it on live that they have on, read the paper. This board, in my opinion, has been very transparent over the years. I think where the loss has been is the lack of public input. And so I'm turning things back the other way. Being a board member is not an easy thing. You learn to have pretty thick skin and listen to things, but that's why we're here. 18 years ago, I was out there fighting for an issue, and 17 years later, here I am. So who knows, there may be people out there that end up here, and I would highly encourage those who want to make change, get involved, and the best way to get involved is sit right up here. It's a lot different story here than it is out in the chairs. So anyway, thank you, Dr. Robinson, for everything. Thank you, board, and past board members, I appreciate it. Thanks.
I have just a couple things. I want to remind the board that the legislative lunch and learns are going on Fridays, and I think Dan is going down for the legislative session March 28th. If you're interested, probably going with Dan. I'm sure he would welcome his company. And I just wanted to thank everybody for attending. I don't know, we don't have a lot of parents left, but one of the things that we heard all night long was attendance, and we really desire to have your kiddos in their seat in the classroom, because when they're in the seat in the classroom, they learn more, and then it helps our accreditation, and it's just good for everybody all the way around. So I really appreciate the parent support. I appreciate you coming and talking to us, and I will reiterate what Andy said. We do have emails, and I was unaware of a lot of things, and so you're always welcome to talk to this board. This board is very transparent, but I also, with 100% of my heart, know that we have a fantastic staff that is passionate about our kids, and we have to have public education because every kid deserves an education in our society, and we need passionate people that will teach our kids. It's extremely important, and we have that here, and I couldn't be more proud to live in this community when I see the people that work with our kiddos. So. And Doug, thanks.
Last Friday, Senator Black and Representative Dean Van Schweik were in Cameron for a meeting that we hosted out at the Y, and following that they came, we gave them a tour. Mr. Lanigan and I gave them a tour of the new facilities at the high school, and both of them expressed amazement because it looks so good, and appreciation. And comments from both Rusty and Dean were that you have a very progressive, a very supportive community. I said, yes, we do, and we're grateful to them for their support, and we appreciate it. So they recognize the value of what's being built. It's almost built there, so just pass that along because they were here last Friday. Other comments? If not, this meeting is adjourned, and we will reconvene in the closed session for legal matters.